Greetings. Here I read out excerpts from books, movie scenes, poems, etc. that are living in my mind rent free, hence the name of this channel. Afterward, I will add some brief comments regarding the excerpt and why I chose it. Today's excerpt is from Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. Razumihin was in extraordinary excitement. Half an hour earlier, while he was bringing Raskolnikov home, he had indeed talked too freely, but he was aware of himself, and his head was clear in spite of the vast quantities he had imbibed. Now he was in a state of ecstasy, and all that he had drunk seemed to fly to his head with redoubled effect. He stood with the two ladies, seizing both by their hands, persuading them and giving them reasons with astonishing plainness of speech, and at almost every word he uttered, probably to emphasize his arguments, he squeezed their hands painfully as in a vice. He stared at Avdotia Romanovna without the least regard for good manners. They sometimes pulled their hands out of his huge bony paws, but far from noticing what was the matter, he drew them all closer to him. If they told him to jump head foremost from the staircase, he would have done it without thought or hesitation in their service. Though Pulcheria Alexandrovna felt that the young man was really too eccentric and pinched her hand too much, in her anxiety over her Rodia, she looked on his presence as providential, and was unwilling to notice all his peculiarities. But though Avdotia Romanovna shared her anxiety, and was not of timorous disposition, she could not see the glowing light in his eyes without wonder and almost alarm. 10 minutes later, however, she was considerably reassured. It was characteristic of Razumihin that he showed his true nature almost at once, whatever mood he might be in, so that people quickly saw the sort of man they were dealing with. "You can't go to the landlady, that's perfect nonsense," he cried. "If you stay, though you are his mother, you'll drive him to a frenzy, and then goodness knows what'll happen. Listen, I'll tell you what I'll do. Nastasia will stay with him for now, and I'll conduct you both home. You can't be in the streets alone. Petersburg is an awful place in that way. But no matter. Then I'll run straight back here, and a quarter of an hour later, on my word of honor, I'll bring you news how he is, whether he's asleep and all that. But the landlady is out of the question. It's all right for me, but it's out of the question for you. She wouldn't take you, for she's a fool. She is an absolutely unaccountable character. But I'm a fool too. No matter, come along. Do you trust me? Come, do you trust me or not?" "Let us go, mother," said Avdotia Romanovna. "He will certainly do what he has promised. He has saved Rodia already. And if the doctor really will consent to spend the night here, what could be better? You see, you understand me, because you are an angel," Razumihin cried in ecstasy. "Let us go, Nastasia. Fly upstairs and sit with him with a light. I'll come in a quarter of an hour." Razumihin gave an arm to each and drew them down the stairs. He still made her uneasy, as though he was competent and good-natured. Was he capable of carrying out his promise? He seemed in such a condition. "Ah, I see you think I am in such a condition." Razumihin broke in upon her thoughts, guessing them, as he strolled along the pavement with huge steps, so that the two ladies could hardly keep up with him, a fact he did not observe, however. "Nonsense! That is, I am drunk like a fool, but that's not it. I am not drunk from wine. It's seeing you has turned my head, but don't mind me. Don't take any notice. I am talking nonsense. I am not worthy of you. I am utterly unworthy of you. The minute I've taken you home, I'll pour a couple of pailfuls of water over my head in the gutter here, and then I shall be all right. Don't laugh and don't be angry. You may be angry with anyone, but not with me. I'm his friend, and therefore I am your friend too. I want to be. I had a presentiment. Last year there was a moment. There wasn't a presentiment really, for you seem to have fallen from heaven. And I expect I shan't sleep all night. Zosimov was afraid a little time ago that he would go mad. That's why he mustn't be irritated. It's a good thing we went away. In an hour, Zosimov will himself report to you with everything. He is not drunk, and I shan't be drunk. And what made me get so tight? Because they got me into an argument. Damn them. I've sworn never to argue. They talk such trash. I almost came to blows. I've left my uncle to preside. Would you believe they insist on complete absence of individualism, and that's just what they relish? Not to be themselves, to be as unlike themselves as they can. That's what they regard as the highest point of progress. If only their nonsense were their own, but as it is. What do you think? Shouted Razuiman, louder than ever. You think I am attacking them for talking nonsense? Not a bit. I like them to talk nonsense. That's man's one privilege over all creation. Through error you come to the truth. I am a man because I err. You never reach any truth without 14 mistakes and very likely 114. And a fine thing too, in its own way. But we can't even make mistakes on our own account. Talk nonsense, but talk your own nonsense, and I'll kiss you for it. To go wrong in one's own way is better to go right than in someone else's. In the first case you are a man. In the second case you are no better than a bird. Truth won't escape you, but life can be cramped. There have been examples. And what are we doing now? In science, development, thought, invention, ideals, aims, liberalism, judgment, experience, and everything, we are still on preparatory class as at school. We prefer to live on other people's ideas. It's what we are used to. Am I right? Am I right? Cried Razumin, pressing and shaking the two ladies' hands. Oh, mercy, I do not know, cried poor Pulcheria Alexandrovna. Yes, though I don't agree with you in everything, added Avdotia Romanovna, earnestly, and at once uttered a cry, for he squeezed her hand so painfully. Yes, you say yes. Well, after that, you, he cried in a transport, you are a fount of goodness, purity, sense. And he fell on his knees on the pavement, and fortunately at that time deserted. Get up, said Dunya laughing, though she too was upset. Not for anything. To do homage to you is the duty of every man who is not a perfect beast, and I have done homage. Yes, you are right, I did forget myself. I am ashamed of it. And as the women made him haste to apologize. But you can't be angry with me for speaking so. For I speak sincerely and not because... That would be disgraceful. In fact, not because I'm in... Well, anyway, I won't say why. I daren't. But we all saw today when he came in that man is not of our sort. Not because he had his hair curled at the barber's, not because he was in such a hurry to show his wit, but because he is a spy, a speculator, because he is a skinflint and a buffoon. That's evident. For we are on the right path, while Pyotr Petrovich is not on the right path. Though I've been calling them all sorts of names just now, I do respect them all. Though I don't respect Zametov, I like him, for he is a puppy. And that Bullock Zosimov, because he is an honest man and knows his work. But enough. It's all said and forgiven. Is it forgiven? Well then, let's go on. End of excerpt. Okay, that was a long one. And so I'm going to do something a little bit out of the ordinary for my pattern. I'm first going to justify the choice of book and then the choice of extract. So Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. As far as I'm concerned, it surpasses religious books. It surpasses the books of religion in its profundity and potency. the best way I can describe it is the most bitter possible medicine for one's soul. That really is the only description I can come up with. If I were to try to select an extract which resonated with me, I'd basically need to select the entire book minus at most a dozen or maybe 2 dozen pages. And for context, it is a 767-page book. So 2 dozen pages is nothing in the context of this book. And therefore, this extract was not one which resonated with me. I didn't choose it because I wanted to pick, because I even tried to pick the extract which resonated with me the most, because if that were the case, I would just read out the entire book to you. So I picked this extract because, so I decided at one point that I wanted to cover crime and punishment on this channel. Having decided that, I tried to pick an extract, and I ran into the conundrum that I just detailed, as I can't obviously read out the entire damned book. And so, I decided to do something a little bit out of the ordinary for me, which was based on something Jordan Peterson had said about what the process of writing a book. Where what he said was, when you start writing a book, you should have a question to which the answer you do not already know. And the book itself should be an attempt to answer the question. And so that's what I've done here, is this extract pertains at multiple levels of analysis to a question which has been in my mind for a little bit of time, but the answer to which I do not know. And that question fundamentally, so it's sort of embodied in Razuhiman's actions, but he also states this explicitly, with the line, "You think I am attacking them for talking nonsense? Not a bit. I like them to talk nonsense. That's man's one privilege over all creation. Through error you come to the truth. I am a man because I err. You never reach any truth without 14 mistakes, and very likely 114. And a fine thing too. Talk nonsense, but talk your own nonsense. To go wrong in one's own way is better than to go right in someone else's." So as for what my question is, what baffles me about that is so I'm now going to switch to explain what is confusing to me. I'm going to switch from Dostoevsky and go to the Old Testament, with the book of Genesis, where, so the first thing is, the third story in that is the story of Cain and Abel. And, well, the story there is fundamentally, act properly or things will seriously not go well for you, right? I mean, that's what, by the end of that story, Cain flat out tells God, "Alas, my punishment is more than I can bear." And so it's like, that is a serious injunction to not make 14 mistakes and very likely 114. It's an injunction to be as careful as you possibly can and to not take a step unless you are sure that it is correct, or unless you are thoroughly certain that you cannot find any better. But then later on in the story, in the book of Genesis, after God has commanded Abraham to leave his house and finally do something worthwhile, well, the very first thing he does is lead his family to a place where there's a famine. And the very second thing he does is, by his own incompetence and idiocy, he almost gets his wife taken as a concubine by the Pharaoh. And aside from just, okay, you can't stay in Egypt anymore, because, I mean, the Pharaoh is understandably angry about all this, because he almost took someone else's wife as a concubine, so he's thrown you out. Other than that, Abraham isn't really. He isn't sentenced to Cain's punishment, so to speak. And what's more inexplicable to me is that as a reader, you don't go, wait, God, what are you doing? Why aren't you punishing Abraham? You go, yeah, duh. Of course you're not punishing him. He just made an honest and competent mistake. And so, my question, therefore, what confuses me, therefore, becomes how before doing a deed can one distinguish between an honest error of incompetence through which, as Razaviman says, one will come to the truth, and the sort of thing that Cain did. How? Because after an action has been undertaken, after its consequences have been experienced, it's obvious. But beforehand, how can one tell? And I think, so I'm now going to jump to another book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which, give me a moment because I don't have the book on hand because I did not expect to, jump to this. So I'm gonna need to go grab it. Right. So this excerpt is from, the chapter The Silver Door. For one trembling second he hesitated. Caution murmured. It could be a trick, a lure, a trap. But instinct, overwhelming instinct, told him that this was not dark magic. He set off in pursuit. So just so we're clear, everyone, I have not thought on this beforehand. Everything that I am solving this question as I speak. And after reading that extract, if human beings have not corrupted it, or have not corrupted their soul, or have not pathologized their relationship with the being, whatever the hell any of those mean, we do have an instinct, I think, intuitively, just on a hunch. I couldn't justify this or give evidence to this to save my life, but I think we have an instinct to determine the difference beforehand and to judge whether a course of action is the sort of error by which we come to the truth, or if it is the sort of need by which Cain creates a version of the human race which God eventually decides is too pathological and needs to simply be flooded off the face of the earth. Which, well, that itself begs a whole bunch of questions. I'm not sure if it does. First off, it would be useful to explore what precisely constitutes pathologizing one's relationship with being and or corrupting one's soul. And last night I'd been listening to an older clip in which Jordan Peterson talks about the story of Cain and Abel. So there's countless clips of him talking about that story. And this is an older one and it's slightly unique. And I've read his book Maps of Meaning. I've read parts of it, and I remember this portion being in Maps of Meaning. But I think he described it as withdrawing from the infinite out of refusal to face or endure or tolerate, or whatever verb you want to use, one's own vulnerabilities, as a result of which one is forced to rely on nothing but one's own devious devices to walk their way through the shoals of life, so to speak. Which, I can definitely say that, well, that sentence resonates with me. It resonated with me last night when I was watching that clip. And so, I guess there the question has been answered. So the first question, the question which acted as the wellspring for this conversation has been answered. How can we distinguish what? So two questions have been answered. How can we distinguish between the error by which we come to the truth and the error by which we lead ourselves to hell? That has been answered. And the answer is by not pathologizing our relationship with being, i.e. by not doing what Cain did and withdrawing from the infinite for intolerance of one's own vulnerability. And yeah. But also sort of the reverse question of okay, at this point I think I've just gone on into incoherent thought, into stagnant thought. This is no longer me exploring and getting lost. This is me just jumping about in the same spot of thought. And I think the question has been answered. So I think I should end it here. So that is the excerpt. That is my exploration of its contents, and more importantly, my attempt to answer a question I had. You guys were just along for the ride on that, frankly. The excerpt may or may not be in the description, depending on if I decide to type the whole thing out. The book, a link to the book, if I can find such a link, will be in the description. Thank you for listening. So far, anyways, as of the time of recording, there have been exactly 0 views on any of the episodes of this channel. Why do I continue to do this? Because, as evidenced here, the purpose of this is to make me think. You guys are just along for the ride. I honestly don't care if you watch or listen or read any of this. So anyways, that's that. Thank you for listening. Fare thee well.